Hello everyone, nice that you're here. My name is Ineke. I have a design studio in the Netherlands and also a collection of furniture that we develop ourselves. When here in Singapore, I'm showing a couple of things in shops, or rather the shops are showing some of my work. At Extra there's some furniture that I designed for Magis. It's a shelving system with a very clever locking system with screws. Is it? It's too loud. Okay. And at Dream, there's some furniture of mine with Capellini that I designed for Capellini for a couple of years ago, with a very intriguing pattern in the back, which is making these chairs for more than just a chair that you could have made 100 years ago. And at Foundry, we are showing some furniture for Arco and for SCP. Anyway, I'm not here to do a commercial on myself. I'm here to talk about design realities. And I think it's very good as designers that we realize that we're in a world that we are all very much focused on design, but there is a world around us as well that is maybe not so focused on design. And I have a slight preference for all kind of things that happen around me. I like it when things go wrong. Here you could say, are the bears looking at the tourists, or are the tourists going to look at bears? Something is going wrong. And at the right, you see this man from Papua New Guinea, or from Guinea, and he's in his traditional suits, but he still has an umbrella and he becomes like a tourist guide. So somehow he's out of touch with the reality he was originally in. I also like it when people start to design themselves. This is pictures in Shanghai, but I also noticed that here people are hanging their laundry on sticks. But what happens is that these people hang it out of their balcony and half in the trees, and that suits them well, and it works perfectly okay. This is a very dear picture to me. This is in Gaza. I don't know if you know what's going on in Gaza. There's a war with Israel for a long time. The people in Gaza cannot afford their kids to show. They can't take the kids to the zoo because they cannot afford the zoo anymore. And what they did is they have two donkeys and they painted them with hair paint and made them look like a zebra so that they can teach their kids what a zebra is. And I think it's part of human nature that we want to move forward and that we want to learn and educate our kids. And I really like to look around and see how the reality, how people deal with that in their own way without us as designers interfering in that. And even kids, you could say, are very good in designing a kind of reality. I like the way you could say that kids are looking at the world, but I'm very intrigued by the way we are looking at the world. You could say, if you ask a child to draw a tree, you get two lines and a circle on top. And a house is a triangle with a square underneath. Here in Singapore, it would probably be a very long square with a lot of little windows in it. But it's a kind of thing that a lot of people, that everyone recognizes, and it has stored in the back of our minds as a kind of communal memory for humankind, to how we recognize things and how we move around in the world. I think it's interesting that if we go to other places, if we get out of an airport in Singapore or in Sweden or in Holland, somehow we find our way out by looking at objects and the signs, and we know what they mean and how we can get out of an airport in all these places. And I think pictograms, the clarity of that, attribute very much to that. Talking about realities, this is my reality. This is me in my little office 15 years ago on the left, and on the right side it seems very empty, but there's a couple of people working with me. It's This was, the room stopped there at where the photographer was standing, and now it's a bit bigger, but I'm still wearing blue t-shirts and phoning a lot. The reality has changed a bit, also for me. When I started as a designer, and I don't know how I see that you are here around, and I think many of you are young designers, I guess. I don't know, maybe you do something completely different, but at least when I started, I think if I look back at it, most of the time I was thinking, where do I want to go? What do I find important? And in my world, I was very intrigued, this is me 15 years ago, I was very intrigued with this world of pictograms and the clarity of things and how things communicate about what you could do with it. At the same time, I wanted to make a bookshelf. The bookshelf is on an angle. It wants to fall sideways and forwards, but also the ladder is a kind of construction to keep it up. And I made objects like this. It's a project called 7 Chairs in 7 Days, trying to play also with this world of pictograms and how you look at objects and fantasize about the potential use. It's funny that as soon as something is like this high, like these planks, people start to sit on it. And they think, good for, we have this kind of measurements in our eyes to recognize these things. And these seats were all also kind of height of human beings, but you could also think this one and that one has both a rocker for 2 people, but is both a rocker for 2 people, but in one you sit with the back to each other, and with the other one you sit with your faces to each other, and I think it makes a reasonable difference with how you behave and how you feel on a chair. These kind of things I was totally intrigued with, the psychology of furniture and how that has an effect on how we behave and how we treat furniture and how we look at the potential use of it. You could say it's very sculptural, it's not very industrial at all. So I moved on a bit, and I have to say also that sometimes I am so fed up with design that I really also like to almost make non-design. That doesn't, I think if you look at design, it's all slick and it's beautiful shaped and there's so much shape. So sometimes, in this case, in this time I was working on a project, on these projects, it's called ordinary furniture. It's ordinary. It somehow you could say, it doesn't look as if it's designed at all. And I wanted to do that a bit. I wanted to look at how the old-fashioned stuff was made without all these pretentious about design. You could, but the thing about these tables is that they are made out of recycled plastic. They are planks that are made in a certain way. The plastic is poured into a casted mold, and with these planks that get a kind of the plastic is casted into a mold, and it gets a floating pattern, and it looks like wood. A lot of people make the mistake that these tables are out of wood. I made a very small set in the beginning with 2 stools and then a longer benches and plus a longer table. And then people started to ask, "Can you please make a bigger table and something with a back?" And then I made a deluxe set, which is that set on the right. Well, anyway, it's really some of the first projects that I did, and I started to show these things during exhibitions in Milan or in London. I rented found some scruffy places. It's the kind of way a lot of designers nowadays try to start up. And from there, I got into some kind of situation where I got all kind of shops asking me about, can I buy your furniture or can we do something with it? So gradually, I started to make it myself because there were no companies to work for. I think that might be a reality, a design reality also for many students. It's very difficult to start to work for companies, at least in Holland it was. And this was also a time, I don't know if you heard about Droog Design, which is quite a well-known design group from Holland. But this was also a time where in Holland a lot of things changed and people tried to make their own way out of it because it was impossible to work with companies. So we started to do everything ourselves.